So we will have Commissioner Peterson call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jerry Bepko. Dennis Bland.
Present.
John Conant.
Yes.
Say that right, John? Conan. Conan.
Just, like Conan.
I was going to go there with the barbarian, but it's probably a little more formal meeting. Maybe in a working session. Sarah Carell.
Present.
John Costas.
Present.
Susana Duarte de Suarez. Jed Fisher.
Here.
Lisa Hirschman.
Here.
Al Hubbard. He's here.
He's
not called. Okay. Chris Lamote.
Here.
Chris Murphy. Okay. John Pop.
Here.
Karen Whitehouse.
Present.
We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, third member.
Oh, thank you, Jerry. I would like to recognize President Tom Snyder. Thank you very much for hosting us, and we welcome you for welcoming remarks.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. We really appreciate it when you have the opportunity to be on the campus. It's a little quiet today, although I guess we had corporate college activity that took up a lot of parking. It's spring break, so you don't get to interact with as many as our students. I would like to further welcome and ask Julie Kirby, who is our campus events manager responsible for this and all the buildings in this complex, to give you a welcome and a little overview of what goes on in this building. Julie?
Well, good afternoon, and as President Snyder said, welcome to the IDSAT Corporate College and Culinary Center. Right now you're in our first floor conference center. We can accommodate more than 400 guests down here. We have a wide variety of events from small meetings in maybe one section to, we hosted our Steward Speaker Series here last month and had about 600 guests. So quite a variety here. And then we have a ballroom on our second floor. We've hosted wedding receptions, lots of dinner galas there. So it's a great space for a lot of community organizations and civic groups. We also have our penthouse level, which is one of our more popular floors, especially for wedding receptions. It's also home of Courses Restaurant, which is our student-operated restaurant. They're obviously closed this week for spring break, but we'll be gearing up again when the next session starts, and they'll be doing classical French cuisine for the next 8 weeks. So they're open Wednesdays and Thursdays for lunch, and Thursday evenings for dinner. And reservations are available on opentable.com. So we definitely encourage you to come visit Courses. It's a great experience. You get to interact with the students. They get a chance to get that restaurant training experience. So please do come visit us at Courses. And again, as President Snyder said, it has been kind of a busy day today. We have 4 events going on. This is actually our highest grossing revenue week that since the building has been open. So business is definitely picking up, and we're very honored to have you here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Billion President Snyder, thank you very much. No closing thoughts for us? Or did we wear you out?
No, I never passed up the opportunity for closing thoughts. No, we really, it's been a great interaction to work with the commission and to be part of this. We've got several members of our team here and encourage them to be part of all of your meetings. I think, as we've said in our budget presentation today, that we're behind the rest of the Midwest in college attainment, and how do we get students, both adult and right out of high school, to think about something beyond high school. What Tony Carnevale has said when he came to Indiana is a high school diploma or less is a guarantee you won't be able to reach the middle class. So what you're doing is really building Indiana's education attainment and income level. It's really important work. We appreciate being part of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations also on hosting the president a few weeks ago. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our newest commission member, John Connett, who will be serving as our faculty representative. He is a professor and the chair of the Department of Economics at Indiana State University. He also serves as the director of the Center for Economic Education. And we did have the opportunity to hear from him this morning, but we did just want to welcome him again to the Commission for Higher Education.
Thank you, it's an honor.
You're very welcome. And I would also, if you give me a second, I'd like, as a part of my chair's comment, I just also want to reflect on the state of higher education and the wonderful address that was presented on Monday, February the 23rd at the State House. This address is an opportunity to bring together Indiana's advocates for higher education to reflect on Indiana's recent progress towards our mutual goals and highlight the contribution of institutional and legislative partners to our state's successes and to articulate a path forward for the coming year. This year, our commissioner spoke eloquently that the need to demonstrate value in higher education and the promise that can be seen through the Gallup-Purdue index approach which looks beyond salary and placement rates to measure the lifelong success of alumni. The event, for those who were there or who were not there, was well attended and certainly challenged those of us in attendance to think differently about our work and examine ways in which Indiana can be a leading state on the quest to measure college value. Then I would also like to remind our members that next month, in lieu of our regular commission meeting, you all are invited to, and we strongly encourage you to attend the annual Kent Weldon Conference, which will be held on April the 12th at the Marriott North in Indianapolis at Keystone as a crossing. Now, if you've ever attended the Weldon Conference, we know how wonderfully packed it is with information, how insightful it is. This will be an exciting opportunity that, unlike past conferences, will connect educators and employers in a very deliberate manner to build connections necessary to integrate career experience into academic degree programs. And I hope to see each of you there, and would also encourage you to extend the invitation to any of those in your professional or community networks that might benefit from attending. And those are my remarks. And I would like to turn it over to our commissioner for the commissioner's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. If you have noticed recently an increase in the number of media stories about CHE and our activities, it's because we've added a new member to our staff, Stephanie Wilson. And Stephanie, would you stand up here at the side here so people can see who you are? Thank you. Stephanie served in many previous positions. She was at the House of Representatives. She was at the Indiana Department of Education. Most recently, she's been with the City of Indianapolis, and we were very fortunate to get her to come to be a part of our team. She's been helpful recently, particularly in the packaging of the college readiness reports that we're going to hear more about later, and really making sure that Hoosiers around the state understand the importance of filing their FAFSA on time, are two of her most recent efforts. This morning, we talked a little bit about it, but since several members of the audience were not there, I will talk a bit about it again, which was that on March 4th, we brought together, again, members of the Indiana Completion Council for a discussion about how to value higher education and the possible creation of an Indiana College Value Index of some sort. This group has met before. We've convened them to actually talk about how each of our colleges and universities would own their part of the 60% goal and other metrics related to reaching higher, achieving more. So we had, presidents, provosts, we had public and private institutions represented. And it really, Jason Bierce, who talked about it this morning as well, posed 5 critical questions related to value and how you measure value. much of the conversation really did focus on the possibility of creating something like a Gallup Indiana Index, which would determine the graduates' satisfaction throughout life and their career. We obviously talked about all the other ways in which we measure, both, as we talked about this morning, both from a quantitative and a qualitative perspective, the value of higher education. Ultimately, the goal will be to provide a more complete picture of return on investment while continuing to still publish information like in our return investment report on the economic value of higher education. We want to provide a more complete picture of the value of higher education. So this will be part of our continuing work in the upcoming months. Last week we also hosted the Indiana Multi-State Collaborative on Military Credit Advisory Committee. They had their first meeting. This group will really provide counsel and help come up with a state plan of how we can actually extend our service to servicemen and women in the state, both current serving service members and veterans as well. The plan that they will be helpful in having us put together will really focus on 5 key areas. The articulation of academic credit. Some of you may be familiar, we've talked to you in the past about the idea of prior learning assessments, especially in the measurement of what military members have learned during their time in service and how that could translate in an academically rigorous way to the extension of credit. So that will be part of what they do, as well as how we use data and technology in our systems to wrap services around veterans, talk specifically about licensure and certification and how the training that they receive could actually be translated into certifications, and also talk about the use of financial aid. These efforts are going to be implemented over the course of the next 3 years and with the support of Lumina. You will recall that last month I provided a copy of a letter from President Daniels calling upon the Commission to look at the status of a metropolitan university for IPSW. Later, after I did that, I went to Fort Wayne and met with members of the Fort Wayne business community who are very engaged on this issue. I think it was a helpful way for me to learn more about their perspectives and to share a little bit about the context and history of how we've done missions and classifications. I mentioned this to you because this will, again, we will be needing to talk about this. Next month is the Weldon Conference, so it's highly conceivable that we will bring something to you for further consideration, not necessarily final action, but at least further consideration at the May meeting. And just to keep you up to date on that. I think Suzanne is on the phone, and I wanted to mention that in an ongoing effort for us to really extend our outreach to the Latino population in Indiana, I was Susanna's guest at the 2015 Latino Legislative Breakfast later in February. I think it's really critically important as we look at this 60% goal and how to close the achievement gap. You'll recall we had a special session on that last year about this time. It's really critical that we increase both the college going rate and the completion rate for those who are members of the Latino population in Indiana. So I appreciated Susanna giving me the opportunity to do that. And then finally, and we mentioned this in passing this morning in our continuing efforts to really increase the rates for low-income, first-generation students, we are using a portion of our College Access Challenge grant, and we notified 12 colleges this week that they would receive a portion of $1.8 million in federal funding. They submitted applications to us about ways to create or expand programs related to primarily Franco-Bannon or 21st century scholars in our state. They were required to have their application focus on a first-year transition to college program, proactive advising and mentoring, career interest assessments and internships, which we're going to talk a little bit more about today, and financial literacy training. 9 public school campuses and 3 private colleges received funding out of that $1.8 million. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much for the report. And now we have minutes for the Commissioner's consideration, and you'll actually find them on page 1. But before I ask for a motion to approve the minutes, I will direct our Commissioner members to page 7. And the staff has asked that we include an addition that was overlooked in translation, and so I will read the addition. Quote, Mr. Murphy made an observation. Oh, and by the way, this would actually be on page 7, paragraph Roman numeral 3, and then up under A. And the addition would read as follows, quote, Mr. Murphy made an observation that banded tuition is likely not the only factor influencing credit taking results, end quote. So with that, the motion, or with the minutes, with the addition or addendum, is there a motion for approval?
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any discussion, any question? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The minutes are approved. Now we're ready for our public square session as the commission works towards making greater connections between college and careers. We will have the opportunity to hear from 4 panelists today who will share some information about their immersive learning programs and the importance of educator-employer connections. You know, that's something we've been talking about at the commission for a while. And so with that, I'd like to introduce that we have an outstanding panel. Janet Boston, Executive Director of Indiana Internet, Jennifer Blackmer, Director of Immersive Learning at Ball State University, Rajesh Raj Balani, Dean of Experiential Learning and Career Planning for the Hubbard Center for Student Engagement at DePaul University, and then Jason Bloom, Executive Director of Innovation One at Trine University. And our own Jason Bierce will be moderating the panel. And so we will start with hearing from Janet. So on behalf of the commission, we really appreciate all of y'all for joining us. Thank you for taking time out of your day. And please welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to present to the commission. Again, I'm Janet Boston, Executive Director of Indiana Internet. And today I would like to, well, first ask you, I look around the room and I see several people who have had involvement with this organization before. Some of them have been on the board, some have been into the program. How many have heard of Indiana Internet before? I love this when I see that so many people know, and I'm always eager to share it with more individuals. Today I'd like to give you a brief history of Indiana Internet, share some national statistics and studies supporting the value of internships to employers, students, and colleges and universities. Describe some of the models for internships that we're seeing today in the state, and describe some of Indiana Internet's partners and resources. So a short history of Indiana Internet. Indiana Internet was formed in 2001 shortly after a research study conducted by the Indiana Chamber of Commerce showed that we were having a brain drain. We were educating our students at our colleges and universities, and they were leaving the state for jobs. This was an initiative that was originally initiated by the University of Indianapolis and IUPUI in conjunction with the Indianapolis Chamber of Commerce. With continued funding from Lilly Endowment, Indiana Internet was granted a 501c3 tax exemption status in May of 2004 and moved to the Indiana Chamber of Commerce with a greater focus on the statewide initiatives. Brain gain initiatives were formed, and Indiana Internet was one of the first initiatives to address this issue. So the next few slides show some national statistics and some other studies that really reinforce the value and importance of internships. So the National Association of College Employers in their 2014 report, sorry, I have to keep turning around here, basically showed, and this is an annual study they do of employers, and this showed that in 2013, 64.8% of employers made full-time offers to their interns. These are interns who were available to be hired. This is a very, very high number. And when they survey those employers, they find that the retention rates of these interns, once they're employed, is actually higher at the 1-year and 5-year marks. Recently, as we've talked about, the Gallup-Purdue University Index report showcases the importance of internships to the engagement in post-collegiate employment. If a graduate had an internship and job during college where they were able to apply what they learned in the classroom, were actively involved in extracurricular activities or organizations, and worked on projects that took a semester or more to complete, their odds of being engaged in work doubled. The index found that only 6% of graduates strongly agree that they had a meaningful internship or job experience in college. Students need more job-focused experiences that enrich their academic learning. Other studies, many of you are familiar with the TEL study that was commissioned by Lilly Endowment and implemented by the Central Indiana Corporate Partnership that also identified internships as a tool for developing our workforce. A little older, in 2011, Rutgers did a 5-year study. They released the outcomes that showed that graduates who had had internships experienced annual salaries $6,500 more than those who did not. Additionally, 47% of their respondents indicated they wished that they had had more internships. And Indiana Internet in 2013 did an evaluation where we surveyed employers. And nearly 55% of employers responded considering a relevant internship to be either important or very important when hiring college graduates. And moreover, 59% agreed strongly or moderately that their internship program is an important tool for recruiting entry-level employees. And at the state level, the Indiana Career Council recently has developed a strategic plan, and the fourth goal is to elevate the importance of work and learn models. The Indiana Career Council has set a goal of 10,000 new work and learn experiences and is tackling the task of determining sources for metrics and to establish a base and to measure success. And as we've heard today, the Indiana Commission for Higher Education is launching their Career Ready program. The campaign this spring, they've received funds from USA Funds to partner with Gallup to have Indiana-specific survey results. And Indiana Internet is proud to have partnered with the Indiana Commission for Higher Education to implement the Earn Indiana program, a program that provides matching funds to employers who hire interns who have been offered state financial aid. Being located with the Indiana Chamber of Commerce also has a huge impact on what we're doing. The Indiana Chamber of Commerce provides credibility to our program and wonderful outreach to the state of Indiana, to employers that need to develop more internships. And the Indiana Chamber of Commerce regularly does employer surveys. Just recently sent one out that included questions about internships, and we will have those results in soon, after March 18th when the survey closes, and we'll be able to report those. So during my last 4 years as Executive Director of Indiana Internet, I've experienced an increased interest in internships and other work and learn models from colleges and universities, employers, and students. Employers are embracing internships for their increase in productivity and reduced recruiting costs. Students gain real work experience, build portfolios, and develop networks. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Lilly Endowment has generously supported many of these initiatives, particularly through their grants to colleges and universities and Indiana Internet. There are numerous models for these work and learn experiences, some of which I will share today. Some you'll hear from our partners who are also presenting on the panel. All of them have the goal of preparing our students for relevant careers and meeting employers' workforce needs. But there is no comprehensive compilation of these models or metrics or the outcomes, something that we're all interested in tackling. Some of these models include education-employer partnerships, curriculum-based. One example is Grace College. We've talked about their new program where they're actually requiring applied learning in the first 2 years of the school's education. And then in their junior and senior years, they're required to have internships. We're also very aware of Vincennes partnerships with Subaru and Toyota that are really merging the gap between employers and education. And then we have a significant career services departments in the schools with recruiting, career fairs, job board postings. Might add too that there's also much interest at the high school level in developing a lot of these partnerships. We have employer-driven models. An example that I use quite often is Purdue up in Garrett, Indiana, where they've developed an extensive college, high school, and ex-offender program and have been able to measure the results not only of their reduced recruiting costs, but of the savings that have been made to their company through each round of these internships. We have industry-driven. We've seen TechPoint with their Indie Extern program, another great program. The logistic industry is working very, very diligently to increase awareness of what logistics means, and they're working with our colleges and universities to do that. And of course, we have Connexus with all of their initiatives. There are many other initiatives, ways that internship models occur. We have national internship websites like internships.com, monster.com, Indeed, Glassdoor, Intern Queen. But Indiana Internet is the only Indiana exclusive website and resource devoted totally to internships in Indiana. We know that interns also students find internships through friends and family, and some of them also are self-generated. So on to Indiana Internet, I wanted to talk a little bit about how we accomplish our mission. Basically, we're an internship matching program that connects employers in Indiana, it's only Indiana focused, all of our colleges and universities, and anybody seeking an internship. And we do this through high-touch and high-tech resources. So in our high-touch services, you'll see in front of you, we have resource guides. Our Indiana, our employer, it's intern today, employee tomorrow. The Indiana is a guide to internships. It's basically a how-to on how to start an internship program. We find that many employers don't know where to begin. And so as we address that challenge, we talk to them about how they actually determine if they're ready to have an internship. How do they determine if they have the right people to handle internships within their organization? How do you write a job description? How do you assess? There's assessment forms. I will add this is being updated right now, and soon to come off the press will be an updated version, but this is our resource guide that we use when we're talking to employers throughout the state. We have employer assistance. We do work with industry associations, workforce development associations, individual employers, and do work with them on their internship programs. We go to career fairs. Ann Cunningham is with me today. She's one of the 2.5 staff members plus an intern, and Ann goes to about 30 career fairs every year. She does this because we know that not every student goes to their career service offices. We know some of them think the only internship they need are just the ones that's required for their education, and we encourage them to have as many as they can and to continue to fulfill their workload. We have a hotline and feedback button on our website, so we get a lot of phone calls. We assist the employers on how to use our website, use our resources, and we answer questions through the website. We have a wonderful Impact Award celebration every year where we celebrate internship excellence. We honor the Employer of the Year in the for-profit and the nonprofit category, the Intern of the Year at the high school, the college, and the non-traditional level, and the Career Services professional. I might add that we have had it in the banquet room here at Ivy Tech, and it is a wonderful place to have an event. And through this opportunity, we get a great chance to hear a lot of amazing stories and continue to share those throughout all of our social media marketing. In fact, the Indiana Chamber's Biz Voice magazine this past month actually features all of the winners from the Impact Awards. Community engagement. We are involved in a lot of initiatives in the community, but the ones that I want to talk about today are regional partnerships, because we found that workforce development is very passionate at the regional level. And so we're working with all of our regions. We're working with the regional works councils now. We have some great partnerships, and they're different models. I might showcase one that is with the St. Joseph Chamber of Commerce up in North Central Indiana, where they've actually hired a staff member to help support this initiative. And with that program, they are basically working with Notre Dame students, graduates, who are the in-focus group, and they decided they wanted to stay in the South Bend area. And they're working as consultants to really help other employers in the area to engage with this program. A little different model in Northwest Indiana is where 4 colleges and 1 university, or 3 colleges and 1 university joined together and used some of their Lilly funding and went further and through independent colleges in Indiana and the Ball Venture Fund grant, where 1 in 3 colleges or partnerships awarded a $25,000 grant out of 40-some applications. And they've used this money to actually contract with someone to be feet on the street in the area to support the work that we're doing. So some great models out there. We're trying to do that in the rest of the state too. At the backbone of our program is the technology though, and it's indianaintern.net. In May of 11, we relaunched this website to make it far more comprehensive. And basically what it is, and I describe it because this is something everybody can get a little bit of a laugh out of, it's kind of like a matchmaking website, except it's for internships. And I always have to add that I hope that we never hear any of the bad stories that I hear about the other types of matchmaking websites. But basically, this is what the homepage looks like at the top. And you can see that we have a portal for entry for employers, for educators, and for students seeking internships. And I'd like to point out the Indiana region feature in particular, because one of the things we've added last year is the ability to work with our regional partnerships. So they can go into their economic growth regions and look at the pin dots on the map and find out where all of the internships are. And by scrolling over those pin dots, then they can see what that internship is. This is a really valuable resource for all of the regional partnerships. I looked today before I came here. Our website always has real-time numbers of the number of employers, internships, and students on the site. And as of this morning, there were 6,346 registered employers, 1,089 active internships. So these are ones that are waiting to be filled, and this is going up by daily as we get towards our summer internship peak season. And 17,044 active students. That number too also continues to go up, and that means active that they've been on our website in the last 18 months. So it's obvious that we need more internships to meet all of the demand from the students. This is the conclusion of my presentation from Indiana InternNet, and would you like to hold questions until after all the panels?
Yes, I think we'd like to jump in on that.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You have to use your PowerPoint. I did those cognitive dissonance.
Should have put them at this end. Sorry, we should have put you guys over there.
No, that's fine. I'll do this.
This is a good exercise.
All right. Hey, wonderful. Okay. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jennifer Blackmer. I am an associate professor in the Department of Theater and Dance at Ball State University, and my field is playwriting. But for the last 8 months, I have been Ball State University's new Director of Immersive Learning. You've probably seen it, Billboard 465, heading towards 69, right? Big word, immersive, right? And I've been at Ball State for 12 years. Again, faculty in the Department of Theater and Dance. And one of the things that happened when I first set foot on campus is that I was browsing the web of my new employer.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, indulge me for a moment. But it's too great an idea to ignore it if you all can indulge me for a moment. Actually, let's go ahead and make that change.
Okay.
Let me move over there.
Well,
But
if you want to.
she can twist.
Well, no, she's hurting my hips.
We're not going there.
So sorry.
This looks painful since we have another presentation after that. We could just take a few seconds, just come over this way. So.
We'll call this intermission.
Yeah.
No problem. I can sit now. Right. Okay. Great.
Very good, thank you.
All right, so when I first set foot on the campus of Ball State, having lots of interests in lots of different fields, I'm sort of an oddball in that when I was in high school, I was either going to be an actor or an astronomer. And I decided that I was going to base that decision based on what college accepted me first. So I went to University of Evansville, I majored in theater, and thought that my interest in science had to be put on the shelf. And of course, it turns out that when you study art for a living, you realize that the art that you do is about the things that you love. So my interest in science and technology never waned. It actually got more and more intense as I was working. And so one of the opportunities that presented itself at Ball State University was this entity called the Virginia Ball Center for Creative Inquiry, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second. And so I applied in 2006, and I got a fellowship, and I worked with 15 students to write a play about genetic engineering. That's a very odd combination of things, but we had an amazing semester, and I am still in touch with many of those students who continue to this day to talk to me via social media and email about the transformative experience that was. And we did that in partnership with Indiana Repertory Theater. And these students, many of whom were not theater majors, got a professional experience in creating art with a professional arts organization and presented it in front of an audience of about 250. And I was hooked. It was a one-time event, it was one semester, but by the end of it, I saw in the faces of these students the transformative effects that this kind of learning had on them. And so I began seeking opportunities for immersive learning, and as luck would have it, the administration at the time, our new president, Joanne Gora, also saw some of the great stuff that was happening at the Ball Center and said, you know what, we got to figure out how to move this type of work all across campus. And thus began the immersive learning initiative that I'm going to talk about now. And we are at a unique time here in Ball State, obviously. I've been in this position now for 8 months, and our current president has been in his position now for about 8 months. He's going to be speaking at the World Conference next month to hear his take on some of the stuff that we're doing. And in addition, there are a lot of changes happening. There are a lot of transitional moments occurring on campus, and we couldn't be more excited about it. Recently, I was appointed to serve on the strategic planning committee that we have, and we are looking at our currently active strategic plan, and we are refreshing it. And one of the things that has come out of this discussion is this idea of a centennial commitment. And what Dr. Ferguson has said in our strategic plan is coming down to this statement of our intention. Ball State aspires to be the model of the most engaged, student-centered, and community-engaged of the 21st century public research universities, transforming entrepreneurial learners into impactful leaders, committed to improving the quality of life for all. So as somebody who is new in this position of Director of Immersive Learning, of course, I'm interested in how this mission is going to impact a lot of this project-based experiential learning work we've been doing on campus. And so it's been really exciting to work at a very fundamental level to see how this mission is going to influence the practical stuff that we do in response to this, right? And as a theater person, I can only talk about something so much before I actually have to do it. And that's the position we're in right now, which is really, really exciting. So this notion of entrepreneurial learners has come up, right? We've been using the phrase immersive learning to talk about what we have been doing in terms of these projects that connect specifically with employers. But that is a very specific type of learning activity. There are 7 characteristics that we have used to look at a project to determine whether or not it meets these criteria. And what we've discovered over the last several years is that there are many other Tier 3 high-level capstone experiences that are going on all across campus, many of which are immersive learning, but many of which are not. So this term in entrepreneurial learner or entrepreneurial learning is a term that's come from the author John Seeley Brown, and it's based on a concept from his book, The New Culture of Learning. And so we're using this as a way of articulating what this work actually does and doing it within the context of this experiential learning. So we're not focusing now just on immersive learning, but we're focusing on immersive learning as as one of 5 very high impact practices that we are doing all across our campus. And immersive learning itself is a very distinct thing, which I will get to in just a moment. But this is how we define the term, some of the things we're tossing around, and this is all very, very new. So Dr. Ferguson was actually very excited when I told him I was coming here, because he said, well, we can test out some of the things that we've been talking about. So if you guys have questions, please fire them off, because I'd be really interested to know what you think about some of these ideas. Now, entrepreneurial learning is the point where thinking meets making. So you can think about something only for so long before you actually have to do it. And what are the skills necessary to take this theory into practice? Entrepreneurial learners are very individual learners. They're students who search for expressive voice. So they want to know how what they think about things intersects with the reality of what it is that they're trying to do. So they want to find that place where their thought processes meet what is actually going on. They explore new ways to learn and serve. They're very interested in community service. They embrace learning as a continuous, lifelong experience beyond the classroom. And one of the ideas that's also come up in these conversations, which I am terribly excited about because this is why I got into higher ed in the first place, is that it's not just students that we're talking about. We're also talking about faculty. That our faculty educators are also entrepreneurial learners in that we ourselves are committed to innovation in the classroom, right? So this requires a lot of risk when you're asking professors to give up the image of sage on the stage, right? We know it all. We want to stand up in front of the classroom and tell the class how much we know. Well, it's riskier stepping aside and letting the students figure it out for themselves. And this is the context that we're looking for with these entrepreneurial learning initiatives. Entrepreneurial learners also build their lives with the tools they learn in college, so they are active rather than passive. So the difference is we're looking for students and we're hoping to teach students who will go out into the world and make things happen for them. It's not you go to college, you get a degree, and then you expect the right job to come at you, right? It's the other way around. You have to take the tools that you have learned and take them out into the world and make it work. They're interdisciplinary all the time, right? The traditional silos, given the fact that these are digitally savvy students and educators, the traditional silos don't really exist anymore. If you want to find out something, you go find it out. And I've had students who know nothing about theater come to my office and say, you know, I'm working on a project that deals with this. Can you help me out? Can you talk about storytelling? And I'm like, absolutely, right? They know how to step outside the box, and it's almost intuitive for them to do so. They self-assemble, so they work in groups as a fault. I mean, that's what they do, that's what they like to do. And they learn through collaboration. I've already said they're digitally savvy, they're connected to the broader world, and they're interested in this relationship between process and product, right? So this is how some of the ideas that we've experimented with in a very basic context with immersive learning, we are moving them, and we are at this point of transition now where my job, hopefully, and it's looking like it's going to be this, is to figure out how to move these notions into our curriculum fundamentally so that it isn't just a project here and there, or it isn't just a capstone. It is actually something that our students will begin to experience from the moment they set foot on our campus. I have taken some of the verbiage, some of the language from our core curriculum, which we went through a core curriculum revision, as you guys probably remember a few years ago. And so we have a core curriculum now at Ball State that is divided into 3 tiers. And the idea of how this is going to work moving forward with the notion of entrepreneurial and immersive learning is that the first tier covers these skills that you need as a student and as a person, really, to work on these kinds of projects in the future of your time at Ball State. So this is the soft skills that we've been hearing about, right? Employers say, we don't necessarily want somebody to come in with a specific major set of knowledge. We want people who know how to communicate. We want people who know how to collaborate. We want people who know how to think in the big picture and can work with people from varying backgrounds, right? These are all things that you can't take a class in working with people from various backgrounds, right? So we figure out how to infiltrate it into the classes at the various levels of the curriculum. So these are some of those soft skills. And then the second tier becomes about tying those things together. So you take these fundamental aspects of what it means to work in teams, and then you figure out how to do it on a more advanced level. And these are some of the things that we've sort of brainstormed. This is still very much in process. But some of these second level skills are analytical skills, storytelling skills. This is something that I fought for, right? Because if you're going to be a good communicator, you have to be able to tell the story of what you're doing in a manner that somebody who is not involved in your project can understand, right? Critical thinking skills, cultural and historical interpretation, right? So these are these second level things that you bring into the conversation In order to get to this level, which is our core curriculum says, is judgment to action. So these are some examples of these tier 3 experiences that we have. We have undergraduate research and field studies. We have internships, which Janet spoke so eloquently about. We've got community engagement projects. We have showcases that go on within the departments. And then we have this thing called immersive learning, which has been Ball State's hallmark for the last several years. Now, what distinguishes immersive learning, and what will continue to distinguish immersive learning as we develop this notion of entrepreneurial paths through the curriculum, is that it combines the best aspects of the classroom experience with the experiential learning. So it's done in, there are 3 aspects that make it work. Immersive learning is a project-based, outcome-focused experience. So students do something, and that something has a beginning, middle, and end. Faculty and students collaborate with each other. So students work in groups, and the faculty member is a part of that group. And then this group of students will work with a community partner to solve a real-world problem. Now, in a lot of instances, that problem is instituted by the community partner, but not always. And I'll give you an example of that a little bit later on, which is kind of interesting. Now, I mentioned that immersive learning started at the Virginia Ball Center. Virginia Ball Center has been around since 1999 through a very generous grant from the Edmund and Virginia Ball Foundation. And we were lucky to have Virginia around for the first several years of the center that bears her name. And so the model that we developed for immersive learning actually came from this 1999 experiment that is still going strong. We have 4 wonderful fellows in place for next year. But the idea of the project seminars that are collaborative and feature a partnership with a community organization came from this Virginia Ball Center model. Now, what is unique about the Ball Center is that a faculty member like me actually wins a fellowship, and that faculty member will be in residence at the Virginia Ball Center for an entire semester, and that is the only thing that they teach. It's awesome. You don't get much better than that. It's kind of like a teaching sabbatical, right? You get to focus very strongly on something that you are very passionate about, and you have the opportunity to recruit 15 students, up to 15 students, to do that with you. And those students get 15 hours worth of credit for being there. So you get to set foot off campus, you get to work in this beautiful house, the Kitzelman Center, and you get to really focus on this project for a semester. Now, the difficulty, of course, is we see wonderful things coming out of the Virginia Ball Center, but our campus has 20,000 students, right? Undergrads and grads, as well as a large faculty. And so our challenge over the past several years has been to figure out how to take that very intense experience and scale it across campus. And we're hoping that this notion of entrepreneurial learning will help us do that even more effectively than we have so far. Now, the 3 aspects of immersive learning that make it unique, as I said, immersive learning is real life in that each project has a beginning, middle, and end. So much like you would have a group in a corporation collaborating together to solve a problem, that is how this model of education works at the university level. So it solves a problem and you do something. It's important for the projects to be there because that raises the stakes significantly for both the students and the faculty working on it and the partner. And those stakes are essential for learning. You can learn something theoretically sitting in a classroom, right? But when you actually have to present your ideas in front of your community partner who may enact your plan, it's really incredible, and it changes the experience for the student fundamentally. And then the students are responsible for driving the knowledge and making the choices. So as I said, from the collaborative model, the students work together, but the faculty also gives up her role as expert. One of the great things about these projects is that a faculty member puts in a proposal to do a project and consider a question that he or she may not know the answer to. And that is one of the most exciting aspects of research, and sometimes we tend to forget that. On faculty, we forget what it's like to ask a question and not know the answer. And what's fantastic about this from a teaching standpoint is that you are modeling as a faculty member your passion for your students. So in other words, the excitement that you get about your field You show your students that. You show your students the frustration that happens when you don't know the answer to a question and you have to try and figure it out. You have to figure out what the best choice in that moment is. And the students understand why you do what you do, right? And I've had a lot of students say, you know, you totally changed my thinking about what education can do. And now, as an education student, I want to do this kind of work with my own students, right? It's risky, because of course you want to be the expert, but on the other hand, the students have an amazingly transformative experience. They embrace risk, we expect failure, and we nurture success. Now, some of the community partners also find themselves participating in the learning process, and in a way, they kind of have to step in and say, you know what, we know your students, so we are going to assume some of the risk that you as students may not know 100% the fundamentals of what you're doing, but on the other hand, that gives them the opportunity to be creative and to think differently. And a lot of community partners come to us afterwards and say, you know what, it was surprising what the students were able to come up with. Now here's some quotes, and I won't read them, but Abby Savage graduated in 2013, and she worked on schools within the context of community, which is an ongoing immersive learning project that deals with the relationships between public schools and their communities. And so the teachers who work in this, on this project actually go to the communities where they are teaching. So it isn't just I'm going there to student teach. It's I'm going there to student teach, I am going there to volunteer, I am going there to learn where my students live, how they live, what their situations are, and do different types of activities for the community. Highly successful ongoing immersive learning projects. Kyle Bushi worked on a project, he graduated in 2011, where he actually went to Venice. His community partner was the city of Venice. And they had to solve a lot of problems very quickly in moving internationally and figuring out what the role of this particular transportation hub that they were redesigning in Italy was. And because I am who I am, this last picture, the last thing that I did before I assumed the role of Director of Immersive Learning at Ball State was that I did an immersive learning project. It was a Virginia Ballster Fellowship with the Brown County Playhouse in Nashville. They came to us and said they wanted a musical about their history. And so I gathered 15 students together and we did research and we wrote about the history of Brown County. And these are quotes from two of my students who were amazing. Brandy talks about learning patience, learning courage, learning how to advocate for what she believes in. Justin talked about not being so self-absorbed in the group dynamic, that in fact it doesn't become about your own ego, it becomes about the work. Now how else are you going to teach students that, right? So when they go to their jobs afterwards, these are the soft skills that employers want their students to be able to do. And these experiences are offering them the opportunity to do that. Obviously I'm pretty passionate about it, so ask me questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Raj?
There's a website that's going to come up shortly. So my name is Raj Balani, and I am new to Indiana. I'm a new Hoosier. I still don't know what that means, but I'm still figuring it out. I'm very happy to be representing DePaul University. DePaul is a liberal arts institution with an accredited school of music built in 1837. What people don't know about DePaul is that we're the oldest school of music in the country, long before Juilliard was established. And we're very proud of that aspect of our institution. So we're a professional school of music, as well as the College of Liberal Arts. We at DePaul, about 4 years ago, with the support of Kathy and Hubbard, actually really wanted to redesign the outcome of liberal arts. There's a lot of critique in the national framework about what is the liberal arts and what's the outcome of this kind of education. And we wanted to think a little bit differently. So what we started doing is we started pulling together different offices and functions that supported students in advisement and their life's purpose. And we kind of looked at that, and not only did we combine them, but that we also cross-trained the staff. And we created life coaches for the students. So they have a coach in the classroom who's their faculty advisor, their teachers, and then we created this center. And the center coaches are there to support students in their journey. And we look at the scaffolding model. We look at how we can add different experiences for outcomes. We at the center always say we want our students to have a life of direction and purpose, a life of accomplishment. And that comes about by scaffolding what they're doing in the classroom, but with the internship, or with a study abroad experience, or a study abroad experience with an internship, or an award or a national fellowship. We have really good metrics. About 92 to 93% of our student body at point of graduation is doing something of great value for either a job, graduate school, professional school, or a national fellowship. DePauw is ranked in the top 5 in the country for Fulbright Award recipients for small schools. We're ranked top 5 in the country for liberal arts schools that students study abroad. So we are leveraging these strengths into life coaches and advisors and really helping our students to develop their goals from year one. Part of that is developing a 4-year plan for our students, and we get them started in the summer before they actually come to campus. It's kind of scary to ask them a question what they want to do 4 years later because they just got into college. But it's important for them to start being reflective thinkers about where they want to go. Students come up with great ideas that are written, they change daily, and that's fine. We want them to change daily. We want them to grow. We want them to think. We want them to get inspired in the liberal arts. One thing that they're also very clear about in the liberal arts is your major does not equal your future. The actual study that you're doing develops the skills of critical thinking, analytical, strong writing, and how do you leverage that for your passions, which is very important for us. So we created a 4-year plan for our students, and in the first year, we do a lot of alumni engagement and alumni mentoring programs, starting from the second day of orientation. And then we start getting them into the basics of resume writing and how to get that internship or how to do an informational interview, simple skill development. Sophomore year is, we start the academic year with a boot camp called the Sophomore Institute. And we bring all our sophomores together to start learning about that half of their academic career is almost over, which scares them. But it's an important scare tactic. And that gets them to start thinking about that first summer internship between the sophomore and junior year. There's a lot of talk about getting that junior year internship between the junior and senior year. So much so we're committed to even getting our students in nonprofit agencies and government agencies and startups that we actually have a fund that will pay the student to have a living wage to go out and do that opportunity, to get that organizational literacy on their resume. Very, very exciting for our students, and it's going to become very competitive to get these grants. The sophomore year is filled with other mentorship opportunities, getting that resume ready, looking at that first internship, even if it's a small internship. Junior year, we do a lot of graduate and professional school preparatory. We teach MCAT classes, LSAT classes, and get our students to start thinking about what happens after the talk. Many of them start crying at that point because they don't want to leave the university. But we encourage them to leave because we need the beds for a first year class. So we say to them, please, think about what your next steps are and we give them the tools. The senior year is about financial literacy. What does it mean to get a salary? What does it mean to pay your taxes? What does it mean to be a citizen back into your community? What's the value of civic life where you are? What's wonderful about these 4-year plans, we use 3 code words. And the reason we use these 3 code words is students make up their own sentences, which is perfect, because it makes meaning for them. We want them to discover, prepare, and connect. And when we ask a student to call what does that mean, they make up a sentence. And that sentence is valuable because it has meaning for them. And they're doing it in the first year, second year, third year, and fourth year. And it's really exciting to see the growth of our students. And thus those outcomes that I've been talking about, where they want to go. We have been so committed, our faculty changed our curriculum last year, where we actually created something called extended studies, space in our curriculum, where students do applied learning opportunities. For example, from September to December, they're in a traditional classroom. In January, they might have taken an art history class. Why don't they go with their faculty member to Paris and study the great works? Some of this is EMT classes that we teach on our campus. Some of them are career exploration classes. Some of them are partnership programs that we've had with Indiana University, for example, with the School of Informatics, to learn about big data. So again, making connections about their future. We also did that in May term, again, 3 weeks intensive, and then we're starting a lot more work in summer internship opportunities. Not only during the fall and spring, but because of our curriculum, we also focus on summer, which gives them more opportunity to grow in that area. Finally, I just want to say that our faculty are very supportive of this because we are really a joint advising system. What happens in the classroom and what happens out of the classroom has to be integrated. It has to make meaning for that student. So we spend a lot of time working with our faculty colleagues to make sure that we are giving the same advice and guidance as we're going forward. So a lot of training and support goes to our faculty who really believe in the outcomes of the center and where we're going next with it. There's a lot more to say about it, but I'm just going to stop down and take the questions. So thank you.
Thank you, Raj. Last presenter, then we're going to open up for questions. Jason?
Just gonna get my slide deck prepared. Well, first of all, Jason Bloom with Trine University's Innovation One. I wanted to thank you for the invitation to be here and talk a little bit about what I do. Oh, thank you. So I am new to higher ed. So my career has been in engineering management and operations and area supervision and management. So about 6 months ago, the university reached out to me and said, hey, there's this opportunity to lead this exciting new concept of Innovation One. It's been kind of started, but we're looking for a rebirth and so forth. So they reached out to me and really brought me on board to utilize my professional experience to bridge with academics. And I am an alumnus of the university, and I've been passionate about the university since I walked on the campus 15 years ago. So I'm a Northern Indiana boy and proud of it. So, but kind of the image that we look at in Innovation One is experiential learning and career readiness is more than internships and co-ops. That, you know, I am a product of internships and co-ops, but that was one portion of what made me successful. So really, what is Innovation One? And we're a one-stop shop for industry to partner with the university. So it's looking at it from the outside rather than looking at it through the growth of the student. So basically, we have small businesses, inventors, entrepreneurs, startups. We're an incubator for small businesses. And basically what Innovation One is it's our portfolio of what industry can work with the university. What that cultivates is a great opportunity for the students. So it's kind of a double-fronted battle, if you will. So we have 3 focus areas: project partnership, career services, which has been a long-standing department, and then professional development. So project partnerships are experiential learning or real-world experience in campus, on campus, capstone projects, curriculum enhancement, project-based learning, on-campus internships that are working with outside customers and clients, and then also working within the departments utilizing programs and developing what they're going to see in the real world. So projects are not case studies. They have a real-world customer, a real-world scenario, tangible problems, real timelines. There's numerous projects that I see from, I was sharing earlier, from the orthopedic industries that are in Warsaw, all the way to a incubated company that started, not to pull from Janet's joke, but it's called Gifts Utopia, that is a business that was started and incubated through our Innovation Challenge, that is kind of a Shark Tank competition. But basically, Gifts Utopia uses the same algorithms that a dating site would, but helps us, people that never know what to buy our spouses for holidays and Christmases, it uses those to develop a pick list. So that was an incubated business. So it's real-world projects, and that was done in both business and engineering, computer science. And then the customers are directly involved with every step of the project. The professors, once they introduce the concept and the tools, take a step back, and those businesses are working with a small business of students. The expectation is that they're going to present that, and then there's a public expo at the end of the year. So one of our token projects that we like to highlight is the Hafner Hands-Free Shower. Terry Hafner is a Fort Wayne resident. He was born with no arms and small, moderately working legs, and our School of Business and Engineering worked together with him and our biomedical engineering department and our engineering students to develop a complete hands-free operated shower that is operated by pedals. There's an active loofah wall, and there's a scrubbing helmet that you can see there. There are 3 shower heads and a drying unit that is kind of off shop there. But basically, Terry was independent, except having to schedule a healthcare individual to come in and bathe him. Now he is completely independent, and it's a great story. The students spent hours with Terry in our biomechanics recording lab, figuring out what his motion abilities were, and then also spending hours with him at his house, installing it, learning what was wrong with it, modifying it, and now it's been in use for just short of a year, and it's a phenomenal success story, and those students still interact with Terry via communication. there we go. Now, our on-campus internships kind of fall into two areas. So Innovation One, the project partnerships, are companies come to Innovation One, and unfortunately, I know from the outside of academia, sometimes industrial projects do not meet academic timelines. So a lot of times they say, well, I need this and I need it in 3 weeks, or I need it in a month, and that does not meet the schedule. So what we offer is, hey, I'm gonna hire some students, they're gonna work through Innovation One, and they're gonna be a contract engineering or business firm and do that project in between classes, at nights, and work for you and get your project completed in your timeline. They're still gonna get that great experience, they're gonna work with that outside client, and they're gonna get the experience along those timelines and understand real world timelines. That's another benefit. The other is department internships, where our departments utilize the interns in major related projects. And one of our success stories in the business office or accounting office, this last summer they hired an accounting or finance major, and we had our annual accounting audit, and the vice president of finance put that intern as the front of the audit. As a result of her hard work, that auditing firm actually extended her an offer about 2 weeks after the audit. And that she still has the rest of this academic school year, and she has a job offer in hand for her job, just because what she did for the school. We gained benefit, got some more work done in the business office, as well as she got a great experience. So next focus area, career services, internships and co-ops. At Trine, about 90% of our students do that. So one of the key things that we really pride ourselves on is industry is visible on campus. It's not just for, the career fair that we have once a year. We have major related career nights, so we pick 5, 6, 7 industries, have an open forum just like this, where the industrial members speak about what they do, the application of what they did in their academic pursuits, and then what they actually do in the real world. And then afterwards, it's a complete social networking event for about an hour afterwards. And then on-campus interviews and career fair and so forth. So that's along those lines. But one of career services, I think, unique, and I'm obviously maybe biased to Trine and so forth, but we look at full package preparation. So, image and impression guidance that, hey, make sure that your socks look this way, as simple as that. We have actually hosted how to iron a dress shirt before, so that the guys don't buy a dress shirt, open it, put it on, and go to that internship interview. We post on our website how to do things in preparation for that. We have speed interviewing, again, not to be too cliche. Just like speed dating, we have a panel of about 45 industrial specialists set up on tables in a room about this size, and they're given 3 minutes to interview that student. The student's given 3 minutes to reply back, and then they move tables. And at the end, the students are given a report on how they did and what they can learn and grow from. Resume prep. Besides seminars and handouts, we do active workshops where you're going to break up into a group of 4 or 5 students. This is John Doe, create the resume for that person, and then interview as John Doe to this person on the other side of the room. So again, one of the nice things that being a small school is we can have one-on-one career coaching. We have 1,600 on-campus students. My team consists of 3 career service specialists, and about 75 to 80% of their time is dedicated to one-on-one career coaching, that they're going to schedule time to sit with that one student and spend a half hour to an hour working with them throughout the entire academic year and tailoring them and the industries that we partner with for the career path that they want. So the other thing, the engineer coming out in me, is a strong data-driven analysis that we're moving towards. So I don't want the data that we have to just be the number that's on a billboard. I know that there's a strong advertising piece to saying that we have 99.7 employment, but what does that mean and how can we break that down? So we're looking at graduation placement. So where are our trends? And this is mechanical engineering from 07 to this last year. So you can see the recession slump and then back to 100% placement. And that's good information, but that's telling the police officer, yeah, I got a speeding ticket because I looked at the speedometer and I was going too fast. So what are we looking at on the front end, which is enrollment And then the ultimate is forecasting, and that's what we're looking at. So our sophomores, we, for instance, are growing a cybersecurity program. We don't have historically good connections with companies and industries and whatnot that need cybersecurity. So at the freshman and sophomore level, what industries do we need to be partnering with? What companies do we need to be bringing on campus now so that they can develop those internships and experiential learning so that when they graduate in 3 years, they have the right opportunities and the right connections at the end of their career. And that's the focus on career services. Professional development, outwardly it doesn't connect directly with the academic or growth of the student. We're trying to use our resources to develop programming for companies and incumbent employees. So basically we're tailoring, our polymer materials lab to an injection molding course for the industry. So an operator that wants to better themselves and get better in their industry. But what we're utilizing that kind of behind the scenes for is we get a solid read of what the industry wants in the area and the region. We can now adapt our curriculum, adapt what we're doing so that our students, when they graduate, we know that our mechanical engineers are probably going to be a mechanical engineer for 2 to 3 years, and most of our engineers go on to be engineering leadership. So we need to be having some type of leadership development in our engineering curriculum because our corporate partners have identified that that's a requirement. That's part of our learning now. So one of the strong things that we have that I was actually a member of in industry is our professional advisory board. Every one of our departments has 10 members, 5 for some of our smallers, and a little larger for some other areas, that are career professionals in their industry, and they grow and develop our curriculum and program, as well as be completely involved in everything that we do on a near day-to-day operation with our majors. So a professor's looking for a real-world example. He'll go to his professional advisory board list, contact someone, they'll come and speak on Lean and Six Sigma, and then give a real example. So they meet on campus 2 or more times a year and develop the curriculum. I briefly hinted on our polymer materials program. My direct degree is actually mechanical engineering with a focus in cast metals. And that's been a strong program at Trine University. But as we've been surveying our region, polymers and plastics are a growing industry. Our graduates, if you handed them this bottle versus a Ziploc bag, they could say, yeah, that's a polymetric material. But they didn't understand processing and fabrication. Now, if you handed them any piece of metal, be it machine, cast, or anything, they could explain that on a technical level. So that was directly driven by our professional advisory board to develop a polymer materials program. And now a third of our engineering students in design engineering and mechanical engineering are undertaking a polymer materials minor and have internships and co-ops, and we've partnered with a lot of industries in that area. And one of the last things that is a focus area is engaging our faculty. With industry on campus, we make sure that they're there for every on-campus visit. An on-campus visit typically consists of 4 or 5 faculty members engaging with the industry partner before they ever have lunch, before they ever meet with anything. They're all invited to our career fair. And one of the other things, on every visit that we go to an industrial partner, we take 1 to 2 faculty members with us so that they can stay fresh and stay completely on the forefront of what our students are being involved in. As well as about 70% of our faculty have been in industry and have worked in industrial scenarios. So what Trine's focus is a return on investment. We realize that our students and our students' families are investing a lot of money in an education, but the end goal is for them to get a job. And through that, there's all of these ebbs and flows that are giving them experience, the right connections, that at the end, they're not nervous, they have experience working and talking to industry players, learned how to work and present data and all of that long before that last year when they're trying to determine where their career path leads them. So that's really our strong focus, is that back-end loaded or that interface with industry, which then results in strong connections and development opportunities for our students. That's the conclusion of my presentation.
Very good. We have about 15 minutes left for questions. I have plenty as usual, but I think I'd like to give you first a chance. We have 4 great presentations. Sparking interest. Sarah, do you have a question?
I do have a question. I do think we have a lot of really great programs today, and I appreciate you guys coming and speaking and taking your time to do this. I was really excited to hear about a lot of them, all of them. And I'm curious, how do you guys recruit students, and how do you make sure that this isn't just kind of your high flyers, high achievers, but that you're actually reaching your entire student population with these?
I can speak to that, because that's been a big question for us, especially on a very large campus. Not the largest, but pretty large. And that's one of the issues that we're working on. The numbers right now say that 25% of our students, roughly 25, it varies between 23 and 27 given the year, have an immersive learning experience. Which means, depending on how you break down the numbers, it means that everyone on campus has access to it. But the difficulty that we have right now is seeing how this work that is, by its very nature, interdisciplinary, it sort of functions within the gray areas, how it can fit into a fairly strict curriculum requirements, right? And so those are some of the problems that we're trying to solve. And I think one of the ways we're doing it is figuring out how one of my charges has been to speak to each of our colleges on campus and have them define for me what the most beneficial capstone experience is and how that intersects with this concept of immersive learning. And that's the project I'm in the middle of right now. So that ultimately what I think we're going to be doing in the future at Ball State is giving the colleges a little bit more ownership on what their culminating experience actually is. Now our core curriculum, as I said, embedded within it is that notion of Tier 3. And right now what that is some sort of an experiential learning. What we haven't done effectively, and what I'm hoping we'll do very well starting now since I'm in this job, is track those successes. And so we know anecdotally that a lot of our students have had experience with this and they love it and it's transformative. And so we are looking out for the numbers to back that up. So it's a challenge, but it's one that we're interested in grabbing.
One of to kind of dovetail what she was saying, we're right now at the end of our registration or guidance week for next fall. So our students are registering for classes. And what I'm working with now is, again, we can be very nimble because we are a small school. I'm getting every student in every major that has their capstone, and I'm going to be working with my team to figure out the most strategic class or lunch seminar to meet face-to-face with them. What do they want as an industrial partner for their capstone?
We don't wait for students to come to us. We take a more invasive approach, look at in front of our students, whether that's in the student organization or a housing movement. The other thing is we use lots of pizza, apparently, that also works. But in all seriousness, we have also realized that the best folks to help educate students and get them excited and make them understand the value of their steps and taking action is our alumni base and our partners, our corporate partners. We become the parents sometimes when they listen to us over and over again. So then we have to bring in outsiders to say the same thing, and that actually works out really well for us. So again, student on student, trying to transform our internal culture, bringing extra from outside, and incentives also help move that forward.
I'll just add a little different program. Our program is available to everyone. Our challenge is just awareness that the program exists. We talk to students periodically and say, I wish I had known this program was there. And once they find it, it's very successful for them.
I think also you have to think about communication. Right now it's very hard to get in front of young people to have a conversation because they're inundated by multiple forms of communication. So we've actually started a social media and web arm of the center just to do outreach. Not outreach to companies, but outreach to students. And we use low-tech and high-tech devices, like from email to posters, and we have found that you have to come with multiple forms and multiple mediums to get them to see the information. There's an assumption that they're all on social media, or there's an assumption that they're all on one platform, and they get their news and information in multiple ways.
We have hired 2 students to be social media interns for Innovation One, just for all facets, internal and external communication.
Other questions from our members?
Yeah, so thanks very much to all of you. One of the great things about being involved in all this through the commission, or in whatever role you play, is you see all the phenomenally exciting things that are going on. Gives you great hope. I mean, so many of these things weren't there when I was in school, and I wish they had been. So it gives you great hope going forward. And I've had kids that have gone through college and now are in college, and so I see some of the programs they're exposed to as well, and it inspires you and gives you a good feeling. I think the challenge is always that it's frustrating. Wow, why can't that spread further faster? Why can't it spread, across the board? I think that's kind of the part of the role of the commission, is to help raise awareness and spread best practice. So my question is actually for Jennifer, thinking about your immersive learning project. I was involved a number of years ago when Indiana started to attract a lot of these new tech high schools into the state, and I'm sure you probably worked with them, and actually was very involved in getting the one into Bloomington. And my son actually is there, and what I've seen from that model is what it does to kids. It totally transforms kids and gives them a relevance and gives them an engagement, and they go, even just in their freshman year, they go from being what you would think of your normal, kind of grunting 15-year-old freshman boy to someone who can get up and speak to adults in crowds, and it's phenomenal. And it's like, why hasn't everybody gotten this? This project-based, immersive type of engaged, collaborative education is not just for the one group or another. I mean, it enhances kids' ability and their desire to learn, and the reason why they know why they're learning. So the challenge is, how do you spread that across an entire school, across multiple disciplines, et cetera? And it's a question, but maybe it's an open-ended one. I know you're moving towards that. But I mean, one takeaway from the new tech stuff is that they always talk about, you got to have fidelity to the program to some extent, because if you try and intermix it with more traditional settings, it drifts. And that's another piece of the puzzle. So I'm encouraged by what you're doing, and I'm just, I guess, questioning how do we take it further, faster?
Well, and that's part of the issue that we're facing right now, is that it sort of requires a sea change in your thinking about education as an entity, right? And it's interesting how some faculty are really, really into these kinds of projects, and then others are a little bit nervous about it, because like working in industry, like working for a corporation or a nonprofit, these projects are risky. And you want your job to feel safe, and you want it to feel secure. And so it's difficult sometimes. The biggest challenge that we have, I think, is talking to people who've been doing their job for a while, and they're like, oh, I know what this is, as opposed to, well, let's think about something different. But on the flip side of it, we have different students now than we did even 5 years ago. Students, undergraduates especially, the graduates, everybody who goes to college for a particular reason, they're different in the way they process knowledge, in the way they communicate to each other, and in the way they learn. And so this idea of this new culture of learning is something that we need to embrace, and it's a matter of, with these students especially, you don't have to give them breadth first, right? It's like the old model of education is, okay, you'll take all of these sort of lecture courses where you'll sit there and we'll tell you all the information you need to know, and then later on we'll sort of give you this practical project that you can use to apply it. It's not that way anymore. I have a 12-year-old. You give a 12-year-old an iPad with a camera, he's going to make a movie, right? So he doesn't sit there and listen to a lecture about story structure and about the poetics and everything you need to know. He goes out and he makes a movie. It's a good movie, and maybe his parents will laugh, and maybe his sisters think he's awesome, but he's done it, and it's a different way of processing that information. And so that's something that we've been talking about a lot over the last couple of years. And how can we take this concept and really apply it so that we're not just talking about it? I'm really interested in this tier model that we were talking about, because what it requires is faculty who are committed to these first-year experiences finding ways to get students into the community, let's say, right? So that they're no longer just talking about it, they're actually doing it. Or classes about writing are actual writing and then peer review experiences where they jump in immediately and do it. And so through these active experiences from the very first minute, very similar to what Jason was talking about, you know, we are engaging the students right away, and then without them even really knowing it, they're building this framework. Again, Raj mentioned scaffolding, it's the same concept. You know, we're building this framework of knowledge and experience, so when they get the opportunity to do an immersive learning project, or to do an internship, or to, you know, go to Lilly and work with a group on a project, they're prepared without even having to sit there and think, okay, do I know how to do this? Do I know how to do this? They are prepared because it's been infused in their education.
Time for a couple more questions. Oh.
I have a question. I apologize if you've already answered this, but I had to step out for just a moment. But how do you measure then? How, I know using the ancient traditional give a grade type activity, but how do you know that in a perfect world, students would be engaged and excited? And back when I was in college a long, long time ago, we had a similar type project, and we had one student that did nothing. So how, you know, it does happen. So how do you measure that each person is engaged, getting what they need, and then able to apply it? Is there any way to do that?
Is this for me or?
Anyone who would like to answer, yeah, please.
I've monopolized the conversation, so I don't. I mean, I have an answer because it's also part of our ongoing discussion about this kind of work. We're very. We encourage the faculty member right off the bat to be very clear about what those student learning outcomes are. And we then keep records of what those outcomes are and then evidence of it. And the problem that we face with immersive learning in particular is that when the faculty member becomes a collaborator, as opposed to I'm this objective person on outside judging you, it becomes a lot more difficult to evaluate students just objectively, right? However, you also do, as a faculty member doing this, you also are the expert, right? So you know when part of a project isn't successful, and you also know the level that the student is committed to getting better, right? So it's a much more sort of interactive one-on-one kind of experience with the student's growth. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in putting these classes on the books, as they say. You know, we have to do the traditional course structure. So for a BBC project, Virginia Ball Center project, it's 15 hours, the equivalent of 5 classes. There are these classes that are 3 hours each. You get an A or you get a B. And I will have faculty members talk to me about, well, I'm troubled because my students are either getting A's or F's, you know, or they're getting A's or D's, and it's because they've risen to the challenge or they've not, you know, and it's kind of obvious where they're successful. Yeah, and so how we are working with this is in training the faculty members as they undertake these projects. They are encouraged to be very clear about their expectations from the very beginning, saying you are going to be evaluated on these criteria, you know, whether you turn your work in on time, how well you work on editing and collaborating and all of this, in addition to those student learning outcomes, which are very, very clear from the get-go, right? So you're going to be evaluated on this criteria using these as evaluative measures. And it's generally, in my experience, it's really obvious to the students when they aren't doing their work. Again, very, very difficult because it's a different relationship.
Can I add one thing, just because I have an Algebra program. I'll meet with my 960th student from that program in 2 or 3 weeks. But one of the things I always ask is, I work for a smaller foundation, by the way, that I don't list often, but Ed Virginia Ball Foundation that funds that program. And I do meetings with each semester. I do 2 seminar meetings every year, every semester, so 4 a year. But I ask the same questions to these students, and you say, is this easier? And they say, no, this is harder, but I'm doing something. I feel like I'm accomplishing something. You ask why, because I had to go knock on doors in the community. I had to get a passport. I had to write letters to people. I had to pay bills. I had to go buy materials. I had to make sure I had the right materials. I mean, it's across the board. there's so many different programs that they've done, and it's just an incredible experience for them. And they often, most of them say the same things, and they also say they don't go back to regular classes.
Yeah. It's
But
all re-entry.
they get an incredible experience, and you do see, so there's a lot of anecdotal things you can get out of this, but you do see some of these students immediately getting jobs and at least looks from people where they normally wouldn't have because of what they have on their resume from that program. And so it's been really neat. So there's a lot more information on it that I can't go into right here, but I just wanted to say that I get to see that program, and it's been an incredible, incredible thing. And they're so different. The programs are so different. All the different seminars are extremely different, but the students get an incredible experience. So, thanks.
We have time for one more question.
I thoroughly enjoyed this presentation, and I applaud you for looking at innovative ways for teaching and learning. And many of you mentioned a new approach that includes both the students' participation as well as a shift in the way the faculty even approaches learning. I'm curious about the third stakeholder, and that is the organizations that they go and work for. Have you had the need to coach them on new ways of managing these interns or future employees to continue to excite them, leverage talents, etc.?
One of the companies that we're working with right now, they are, I'll call them second stage upstart, and they're basically have an extremely dynamic, growth curve. And they did not understand that these students had to go to class. What do you mean they have to go to class? I need them here. I need them now. I need them to. They don't show the sense of urgency on my project that I have, was a direct quote. And so basically I brought them in, and I had kind of a coaching seminar with the company and said, hey, I understand that we have hired these students as interns to not meet the academic timeline, and they're working on that, but we do need to understand that this is a balance, and what can we do to identify milestones and map out the success points that we can have a clear understanding of that, so that they can understand as the customer and we can understand as the contractor to do that. As well as we had an intern placed with a company or employed with a company, and that employee the intern was going through some personal issues, and we ultimately got our university counselor involved and met with the company and with the student separately to develop a better fit model for how they could work. And some of it had to do with an adjusted work schedule. Things like that these students aren't necessarily 8 to 4, 9 to 5ers. So they said, well, I have some family issues that I need to deal with. Can I work noon to whatever? And they were like, well, yeah, why didn't you just say so? That's just sometimes we have to get involved as that third party to kind of referee, and we've had to do that.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, but in the interest of time, please, John, one more comment, and we're going to have to close.
Interns aren't supposed to file grievances.
Well, this has been a very enlightening panel. I mean, really, and having 4 representatives, 4 perspectives to learn what you're doing in terms of innovation from a unique perspective in different lenses. It's really encouraging. Continued success to you all. Commission members, can we give them a hand for? Thank you all very much. Thank you, Jason. And now we're going to move into the capital project. We have 2 capital projects for consideration and discussion today. And the first will be the Schmidt, or the Ball State University Schmidt Wilson Residence Hall renovation. We have Dominic Chase representing staff who have come and provide us an overview, and he's going to also then introduce the representatives from Ball State. Dominic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, the first project is Ball State Schmidt Wilson Residence Hall project. The total estimated cost of this project is $40.1 million, and it's funded from housing and dining revenue bonds. Staff investigated and asked about bond terms, comparable projects, student housing rates, and safety. This project was also presented to the Budget Productivity Committee on February 26th. After review, staff recommends approval of this project, and we have Bernie Hannon from Ball State to make a few comments and answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dominic. It's always a great pleasure to be before this August committee. Again, it's been a while. Nice to see you all again. I'd like to introduce Dr. Alan Hargrave, who is our Associate Vice President for Student Affairs, and I can help answer questions about the project. So at Ball State, we've got 12 residence hall facilities, one of which is occupied by the Academy for Science, Mathematics, and Humanities. High school students, 11 occupied by Ball State students. We have a long-term campus master plan, a long-term housing and dining plan. As part of this plan, it's time to renovate this particular facility. This will be the 6th facility that we will have renovated or replaced in the last 10 years or so. We put aside 2.5% to 3% of our replacement cost of our housing and dining facility every year. So we have funds in the future to take care of these projects. We always have high quality, well-maintained projects as we go forward. So consistent with Ball State's idea of the entrepreneurial learner, and Alan and I serve on the strategic planning committee with Jennifer, and if we can just get her to be more enthusiastic, it'll be a really good meeting. Well, Alan will say a few words about the living learning component of this facility and how we treat our living learning centers within our residence halls at Ball State.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm in my 28th year at Ball State, so I have drank the Kool-Aid and believe very strongly in the institution. We believe that our learning communities are a value-added component. We work closely with academic departments when we create these living learning communities. And in this particular building, it's proposed that we house students in the departments of theater, dance, and design. Trying to create a very creative atmosphere for students. Our theater department has limited rehearsal space for the number of students that they've been able to recruit. So in the facility, we intend to have a very small black box theater for students to be able to practice in into the wee hours without having to walk back from the traditional theater area. We also have a small dance studio for students to be able to practice in, a design studio so they can lay out all of the materials that they want to work on, as well as social gathering spaces. And we think we've taken a pretty moderate approach in how we've designed our buildings. We don't desire to create Taj Mahals. We try to do something that's very reasonable to try to make sure that our rates remain competitive for students and that they'll be able to attend.
As Dominic said, the project cost $40.1 million, the construction cost just north of $31 million, comes out to about $205 a square foot construction cost, which is well below the national average of $226 per square foot for construction cost. So for us to be able to build the kind of quality facilities we have on campus and be well below the national price makes us very happy. The project itself basically will strip this facility down to its superstructure. We're going to save the foundation and the steel frame and then build back up around it, which saves us by our estimate from architects anywhere from 5 to 15% on new construction. The building will be demolished. Demolition will begin right after approval from the state, and students leave this spring and should be online by fall of 2017. So we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
I recall there's, where I was looking, there's just an elevator that only goes to the 6th floor, is that correct? Of the 1st and the 6th?
In the current facility,
yeah,
there's an elevator that only goes from the 1st floor to the 6th floor.
So do you go up and walk down, or you walk up?
You can go either way, I suppose, in the current facility. The new facility will have 2 elevators that go stop on every floor and will be ADA accessible.
Will, do you think be able to get the advantage of the common wage, or I don't know where that law is in the State House right now. Do you know where it is? Anybody?
As far as I know, last I heard, it's through the House and being considered in the Senate. Obviously, we'll comply with the law wherever it is when it's passed.
That would save a lot of money, wouldn't it?
It's possible.
Yeah.
Any more questions?
Where are you funding this out?
We're funding this out of our housing and dining reserve. That said, we set aside 2.5% to 3% of the replacement cost of our facilities every year into a reserve pot. As that reserve pot grows, we either pay cash for the facility or we'll bond it, and we'll pay off the debt service with the reserve. This facility will bond.
You will bond?
Yes.
What's the debt of the university?
We're right about 200 million all in. That includes the debt service funded by the state, plus our own housing and dining debt.
What would be the percentage debt service to revenues?
The debt service to what, I'm sorry?
To revenues?
Oh, well, revenues, housing and dining revenue, all in, or just housing and dining?
All in.
All in, our revenues are about 450 million, so we're 200 million to 450 million, so it's a pretty good ratio at this point.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one comment. In reading through this, I'm supportive of the project. I don't have any issues. I think I keep finding myself looking at the cost per square foot and trying to understand whether we've really done a great job in getting the best deal possible or how it relates. And I'm wondering if on a go-forward basis, instead of comparing on a national basis, I wonder if it'd be more instructive for us to compare it on, for instance, an Indiana basis or a Midwest basis that's more comparable to what our cost would be here, just to get a sense of how are we doing in that managing the cost of the project.
We're happy to talk to our peers and find out what they're paying in the Midwest. The best available data have to be that national survey. That's what we grab onto.
It'd just be a lot more helpful to look at that and say, because it's hard for me to, when I'm thinking about the East Coast and the West Coast, the costs are typically much higher. We've got a lower cost basis here in the Midwest, and so it's just some kind of an analysis that can give us some perspective, because $500, $600, $800 a square foot, depending on the project, it's hard to understand whether that's a good deal or not a good deal.
Well, even if we just collected the data that comes through us for various projects,
yes,
we would have better data.
Yes, that's something that's more relevant to where we are.
I can tell you that this is, we treat our housing dining as an auxiliary because it has to pay for itself, and revenues and expenses equal out, and so our pricing then reflects our cost. And our housing dining costs are well below the Midwestern average. So we know at Ball State at least what we're paying and charging students are below average. Alan, you have a comment?
Defining a renovation is a very wiggly thing to try to do. When we look at our renovation costs for this particular project, where we're stripping everything down to the superstructure and comparing that to what many universities consider a renovation, which is paint and carpet, it's a completely different animal that you're trying to define. And so, in many ways, if we look at even at this construction cost and compare it to new, I think we've made a very, very wise choice to save the foundation and the structure by saving that much additional money. But for a student walking in, they think, I've got a brand new building. And for the next 20 years, our mechanical systems and things of that nature are going to last. So we believe it to be a good investment for the university, for students.
The proposal won't take any more, we'll just have to come get that data.
Is the 450 million the revenue from the residential only?
No, that's all it's for.
Everything?
That's everything. Housing and dining revenues are about 80 million a year.
Could you address briefly kind of the balance that you make in terms of all your residence complexes between the growing pressure to attract students with great facilities and the need to keep costs down for students, particularly in residential life?
Sure. We actually have based our long-term housing plan based upon a marketing study that we had done. And so we wanted to know what students want. That's only one component of it. Now, what are they willing to pay for it? You need to have that piece to the puzzle. So here's an example that I share with people. Students say they want privacy. And much more private than I was at 18 years old. I had a different life experience. So when you start to drill down, it wasn't they wanted private rooms. They didn't want to go to the bathroom and see somebody's feet under the stall. That was what it was about. They didn't want to shower in a large area. So economically, how we've designed our latest buildings are, we have a series of private bathrooms within a larger bathroom area. So we have the savings in design of having all of our pipe and plumbing go straight down the core of the building. And we also then have the utility of being able to clean those without having to go to suites and inter-student rooms and having them spread over the entire floor. So that's an example of how we've tried to provide what students want, but do it in an economical manner. And students have been very satisfied with this approach.
What kind of spread is there on campus between the monthly cost for the premier residence halls and the
Sure.
who's really trying to save?
The buildings, the new buildings we designed for upperclassmen that they have the option to move to, that's about $10,200 for the year, including their meal plan, and down to about 98, I believe, Dan, for an unair-conditioned 1960s style residence hall with community restrooms and showers.
We don't have
Not much spread.
We don't have a big spread in our housing. And there's some reasons that we don't like students to live in the good neighborhood or the bad neighborhood. We want to have a fairly consistent pricing, but we have a large disparity in meal plans people can buy. So people can buy the 10 meals a week plan or the 40 meals a week plan, and the price differential can be quite substantial there.
I do have one thing I'm kind of curious about, and I don't want this to be viewed as me being against learning communities. I think this is great. I think the studio space is really exciting, but how many beds are you going to lose for that, and what does that look like with your current supply and demand for student housing?
Yeah, we're actually able to add on about 50 beds to this project. And we did that, we were able to add on very modestly to the west side of this building and add some bed spaces. The building in its current configuration, where the elevator only went to the first and sixth floor, I did not make that decision.
That was 55 years.
55, yeah. I would have been a very, very small infant at that point. But it had two lounges, an entire sixth floor lounge and an entire first floor lounge. And so we've taken all of the rooms on the sixth, or the space on the sixth floor to create student rooms, and then all the amenity kind of space would be on the first floor. And there's a partial addition on the first floor to be able to allow for some additional lounge space. So students should have a great experience in this facility.
Two questions. What % of your undergraduates live on campus? And the second question is, what's the difference in pricing between living on campus and off campus?
Sure. We have 93% of our freshmen live on campus. And we have residency requirements, so students either live on campus or live at the permanent home of their parents. We have about 55% of our sophomores decide to live on campus. And then much smaller numbers of juniors and seniors. In terms of comparing prices, it depends. Students sometimes think they can live off campus more cheaply until they start to pay all of the auxiliary bills that go along with renting an apartment. When they start to get cable and heat and water and things, it starts to add up. It also depends upon what a student is willing to live in. And I'm sure some students can find cheaper accommodations on campus. Our residence halls, we feel we have the most impact in adding value to the educational experience in the freshman and sophomore year. And that's what we've been designing toward.
We've actually seen in Muncie the growth of some high-end apartments. People were attracting students who want to pay more than residence halls. And that seems to be more popular now in Muncie than the lower end stuff.
Thank you. We have a staff recommendation.
So in the interest of being more efficient, we're going to do the recommendation at the beginning. So the staff has reviewed this project, and as I stated, it was presented to the Budget Productivity Committee on February 26th, and we do recommend approval
No, thank you very much. There's a recommendation for approval. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval indicated by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's been approved. Congratulations. And now we are ready for the second project, which is at Purdue University.
The second project is Purdue's Flex Labs facility project. The total cost is estimated at $54 million, funded from support research facilities revenue bonds, gift funds, and central reserves. Staff asked about bond terms, comparable projects, and lab types. Here to present and make a few comments and answer any questions you have is Kevin Brady from Purdue.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm a bit under the weather with a frog in my throat I can't get rid of, which is typical of a lot of people this time of year. We've talked to you in the past quite a bit about the growth in our College of Engineering, and this project is related to that growth. While we can renovate the existing facilities to accommodate additional students and house more faculty in a more condensed environment in the office, we can't do that from a research standpoint. And so this facility will provide us with additional research space to accommodate that 30% increase in the faculty growth for our College of Engineering. It's multidisciplinary research space. It also is designed to be flexible so that we can accommodate both wet labs, your traditional labs that have gases as well as liquids that you might find in a chemical engineering lab, as well as the dry labs that you would find typically in a civil engineering or in some of the other disciplines. And then the ability in this facility for us to adjust the size of these labs based upon the research program, much like the room that you're in now. They can accommodate one large group or could be broken out into 4 smaller groups. We hope to design this research facility to be able to accommodate the various sizes of research programs of our faculty as they come in. Our board actually approved this virtually a year ago, and it's been sitting on the back burner waiting for funding from the gift side. And so the next thing I'd like to do is to thank the Lilly Foundation for their generous gift of $13.5 million to get the gift portion of this project committed and funded, in addition to some internal funds that we have committed to. And then we spent some time at the Budget Productivity Committee talking a little bit about the Research Support Bonding Authority. This is bonding authority that we at Purdue have not used in the past. IU has used it to build some of their facilities. And it is a relatively new statutory authority that we have. And it relates to the ability for us to use the revenue generated from the research program to help support and pay off the debt. And so at this point, let me just stop and I'll hope to address any specific questions that you have.
Well, you kind of started to address my question. I assume that there'll be a significant amount of federal overhead dollars created from that, and how much the cost do you project the federal overhead dollars will be?
Based upon how much we anticipate them to generate out of the facility would be significant. We've allocated a baseline appropriation or a baseline commitment out of our existing F&A, facility and administrative recovery, of about $2 million to help support the debt service on this facility. We generate approximately $60 million a year in that facility and administrative cost recovery.
60?
60.
60?
Yes.
Those are government and private fees paid for the research?
That's correct. That's correct.
If there are no more questions, we're ready for the record.
After review, this project was presented to the Budget Productivity Committee on February 26th. Also, there will be an R&R investment of $720,000 annually and operational costs of just over $445,000. We do recommend approval of this project.
We have staff recommendation for approval. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's approved. Now we have two expedited action items. Purdue University, the Zucro High Pressure Research Lab Test Cells Construction and Control Center renovation in addition, and the University of Southern Indiana Physical Activities Center renovation and expansion project. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's approved. And now we're going to have a presentation on Indiana's college readiness reports that are produced annually to help local communities and schools understand how their students are performing in college while informing policies that increase college readiness and success. The Commission recently published the results from the high school graduating class of 2013, and Dr. Townsley is going to give us an overview of the results.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. As you heard earlier this morning, there's a lot of work being done on many fronts to further alignment of K-12 and post-secondary education, and the Commission's college readiness feedback reports are an important tool in helping to guide that work. This afternoon, I'm just going to briefly talk about the purpose and scope of the college readiness reports and touch on key findings and trends that we're finding statewide. As the Chairman said, we're looking at our latest data from 2013, but I'm also including a couple of other years, 2011 and 2012. So the purpose of the college readiness reports is really to examine students' college going and college readiness with demographic, geographic, and academic breakdowns. For example, the reports show college going race by race and ethnicity, socioeconomic status, by state, county, corporation, and school levels, and by things such as high school diploma type, and whether a student took and passed an advanced placement test while in high school. And as I mentioned earlier, these reports focus attention on the alignment between K-12 and post-secondary education. So where is the data coming from and who's included? The reports look at high school graduates who enrolled in post-secondary institution in the school year immediately after high school graduation. In order to be considered enrolled for the purposes of this report, the students must be a degree-seeking undergraduate pursuing either a certificate, associate, or bachelor's degree, and enrolled for the equivalent of at least one semester. So for our most recent reports, we took the 2013 high school graduate data provided by the Indiana Department of Education and matched it to enrollment data submitted to us by Indiana public colleges for the 2013-14 school year. We also used the 2013-14 enrollment data from the National Student Clearinghouse to provide us with a picture of those students attending Indiana private and proprietary colleges as well as out-of-state colleges. And from this data match, we determined a 65% college going rate. The college going rate is one of the key indicators we track with the college readiness reports. Data show that this rate has held steady and over several years, beyond even the time frame that I showed here. Our data go back to about 2008. Furthermore, the college type or sector enrollment pattern also is holding steady. If we look just at the college-going population.
Excuse me, so 65% of our high school graduates are going to college?
Correct. That's our college-going rate. If we look at just that college-going population, we see that nearly 3 out of 4 students, or 75%, attend Indiana public colleges. 12% go to Indiana privates, and the remainder go to proprietary or out-of-state institutions. This slide provides college-going trends for various subgroups of students, the same groups listed on the first page of the statewide report in your agenda book. Generally speaking, we see modest enrollment changes among the various groups. Notably, an uptick in the percentage of Hispanic students enrolling and a decrease in the percentage of Core 40 and general diploma earners going to college. For the remainder of this presentation, I will focus on some key additional indicators of college readiness that are based solely on the data submitted to us by Indiana public colleges and universities.
Excuse me, can I just interrupt for a second on that graph? It shows that Core 40 in general were down in percentage of enrolling in college. And the only other downs were in graduate with waiver, WAG, and other. What's causing the reduction?
Look at the academic honors up.
I see the honors is up, but the others are down pretty substantially. Where did they come from? Those that are down. There's not enough in the black component or in the other to make up that difference, is there?
So part of the shift might have to do with the fact that more students are taking honors diplomas now. And we'll see that as we look at the breakdown of the incoming class.
So the 91% is a larger cohort in 2013 than it might have been in 2011.
Right. So if you look back here at the top of that left-hand side graph, the N is 71,123 students. The year prior is 68,122.
What does that measure?
The number of students total who graduated in that given year.
92% of the 68 is a smaller number than the 91% of the 71.
So, can you briefly just describe what honors Core 40 in general is?
Sure.
Stacey hasn't been in Indiana for too long yet, she's just been here a year. Academic honors diploma could be academic or technical honors, which means that you have more credits in there, you have more math required with that. So
it's very prescribed.
Yes, it's very described by the high school diploma type, and if you look at our research institutions, as we were talking earlier, nearly all of them require academic honors to be accepted. All of our four-year institutions are really moving toward requiring at least Core 40. So the students with the general diploma or who are graduating with a waiver are most likely to be obviously the least prepared. I will say that in terms of those who had a Core 40, we did see a decrease in the number of those who were not ready for college level work. It was at the last time, 40% of our Core 40 students were not college ready. This report will show 33%. So,
and so out of 70, and maybe that's what that chart said, I'm sorry, my eyes aren't better. Out of the 70,000, 71,000, how many of them are honors? How many are Core 40? How many are general?
we do have a chart.
We do have that in the report, in the handout that you have. It actually has the numbers.
23,000.
Yeah.
760 were honors, 35,007 were Core 40, 11,006 were general.
Okay, so again, looking at these additional key indicators, we're looking just at data from the Indiana Publics. And I will note that we were not able to include Indiana private institution data this year as hoped, but we are working closely with the ICI to make that a reality for future reports. But again, for now, it's important to remember that we're only referring to the public slice of the pie for these indicators of program and enrollment detail, college preparation, freshman year performance, and for the first time this year, we're folding in the sophomore year persistence data. One indicator covered in the college readiness reports is the degree program and enrollment status of students. At what degree level are students entering college, and at what areas of study are they pursuing? Are students going to college full-time? And of course, we define full-time as 12 or more credit hours entry semester. Part-time is less than that. There are time to degree considerations around that metric. And just to clarify, the degree type and area of study are based on entry semester. And as we know, college freshmen do change their majors. So in looking at the overall composition of the incoming freshman class in terms of diploma type earned, this graph illustrates a greater percentage of students now enter with an honors diploma, with fewer core 40 and general earners in the mix. And here are some of the numbers associated with those percentages. So we had almost 17,000 core 40 earners and over 15,000 honors. We also see a fairly steady enrollment pattern by college campus and system, with IU and Ivy Tech enrolling the highest percentages of Indiana high school graduates. In terms of degree level, almost 2 out of 3 students, or 64%, enter seeking a bachelor's degree. We see a recent decline in the number of students starting college with undecided majors, with rising numbers, particularly in health, arts and humanity, and STEM majors. This trend likely relates to guided pathway efforts such as enhanced use of degree maps. We're also seeing approximately an 80-20 split between full-time and part-time students overall. As this graph shows, a clear pattern of full-time, part-time enrollment emerges when we look at rates by diploma type, with a vast majority of honor students at full-time status and about 75% of core 40 at full-time. For the college preparation indicator, we looked at whether students were required to take at least one remedial course their freshman year and whether they successfully completed that remedial coursework. Note that remediation needs are defined by the institution, and different institutions have different ways of identifying students needing remediation. Remediation covers English language arts, reading or writing, math, or both subjects. And we know students needing remediation are less likely to persist to sophomore year and graduate on time. According to our latest data, about a quarter of Indiana high school graduates attending public colleges require remediation.
Stacey, you were talking earlier. Do you know what percentage of kids that need remediation, what percentage of them are math?
I will get to that. What's your question? Again, with regards to remediation, diploma type matters. Commissioner Levers alluded to this earlier. The percentage of general diploma students needing remediation is twice that of core 40 earners, and the percentage of core 40 diploma holders is almost 30% higher than honors diploma students. It's pretty significant. Overall, remediation needs declined from 2011 to 2013. In 2011, approximately 31% of students had to take at least one remedial course their freshman year. In 2013, that number dropped 8% to about 23%. We saw this decline across all subpopulations that we track. At the same time, the data indicate completion rates of attempted remedial credits are going down. Fewer students enrolled in remedial coursework actually end up earning credit.
So, this is so exciting, it makes you question that.
Yep, and I'm getting to that. Here we go.
The 8% over 3 years.
Pardon me?
The 8% decrease over 3 years.
Yeah, I just cannot believe it. Have they changed their stance?
So here, that was going to be my very next slide. Undoubtedly, there are several factors involved in the decline.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, one factor that we know changed was that starting in 13-14 academic year, the state's largest remedial credit provider, Ivy Tech, identified students for direct placement into regular college courses in a different way. As you'll see in this chart, in 2013, almost 2,000 fewer freshmen were required to enroll in remedial coursework. And those who most need remediation are the ones now targeted through revised placement efforts. Passage rates of remedial courses may have been boosted in years past by more academically prepared students, so that may be one of the reasons why we're now seeing a decline in remediation passage rates.
So students who weren't as, who perhaps who would have done okay in a credit-bearing course, more of them are being put in credit-bearing courses instead of remediation, but those who are still going into remediation have a greater level of need when they're there. So the percentage of them who are not completing the gateway course is a bit higher.
Dr. Snyder also indicated they've got a boot camp program, a series of other programs that are changing the numbers.
Yeah. And some of the programs, and some of the, we actually, chatted briefly about this at lunch today with President Snyder in particular, because I think they're still trying to get underneath some of these numbers too, because some of the things that they have put in place and we have put in place would still not have been reflected in the class of 12, 13. Some would, depending on where they set some of their scores. So, but I think, still, I think the overall trend is clearly that we do have, what would be considered to be statistically significant number of students who are not identified as needing remediation when they enter college. A year does not a trend make, so I don't think this is anything to celebrate yet. First of all, we still have 25% of people who need remediation when they start. So that in and of itself is a challenge. But there are multiple ways that we are trying to identify students in high school, provide wraparound services in college, do the degree map, do all kinds of things that I think hopefully will continue to contribute to more students leaving high school ready to do college work.
Well, your test, the best test, in a sense, perfect test, but your best test would be whether their success in college is as high as those who didn't need remediation in the past as did.
Yeah, which we'll have to watch that.
Right. If all of a sudden the success declines, because that chart, the easier chart is the one right before that, if you pop back. I mean, that chart would suggest our high school is doing a hell of a lot, or our school, K through 12, are doing a hell of a lot better job.
Core 40 maybe.
Well, it also might mean that there are more that need remediation that don't get it. In other words,
right, I mean,
numbers are
That's what you're saying, measure to see whether or not.
well, we'll see how they do in college, if they needed remediation.
The other thing that's striking on the next slide is just, we've gone to say that remediation has to be done by ag tech or consent and not in the four-year schools. If you look at those percentages between 11 and 13, there's a very large drop among the four-year campuses.
Right, we're seeing a drop in both number and percentages of those who are needing remediation. So that's encouraging. Certainly the remediation trends are something that we will be needing to watch over the coming years.
But now if I read that correctly,
We're not supposed to be doing remediation for your schools, right?
so Purdue's got one.
Right. Right, so you don't want to look just at percentages.
The numbers on the way.
Bloomington is much higher.
A final point on remediation, this gets back to one of your questions, is that regardless of diploma type, math continues to be the biggest remediation challenge. Although we do see improvement from 2011 to 2013. So the dark orange is math only, the lighter orange is both math and English language arts. And so across the board for all diploma types, we see that remediation need hovering around 80%, 90%, with some drop in 2013.
But math being the major area.
Which is driving the redesign of math pathways in high school and college both. We're hopeful that we're going to see some change in the future with this.
they've messed around with math. We've got, I've seen 2 new maths. I mean, they come and go with them. They kind of, you ought to just stick with the basics.
My perception is that math remediation is tested by an exam and that language arts is tested by a transcript. Is that accurate?
Well, well with regards to, for instance, the changes in Ivy Tech. I think they're looking at both ACT, SAT scores, as well as transcripts, as well as introducing AccuPlacer. Institutions do things in different ways.
It might be part of the
Okay. So the freshman year performance is another indicator that we're looking at. We're looking at credit hours earned. Of course, most of you know that our degree programs require 60 for an associate or 120 or more credit hours for a bachelor. We recommend that students take at least 15 credit hours in each semester for a total of 30 at the end of their freshman year for on-time completion. Another point there is looking at cumulative GPA, which our data represents GPA as of the end of their freshman year. And of course, we know students with higher freshman year GPA are more likely to persist to sophomore year. And so our performance here is kind of boring, but not in a bad way. The data show that the average credit hours earned freshman year continues to fall below the on-time rate of 15 credits per semester or 30 per year. This average that I have on the chart on the left includes both full-time and part-time students, which provides more of a complete picture of where we are overall in terms of moving towards an on-time college completion rate. I do note, I don't have it on there, but our full-time students still earn less than 25 hours a semester.
Could you get that number for us? Because I think having the part-time and the full-time is important to know, but I think knowing what the full-time credit. And the other thing, and I don't mean to be, to make this to be a bigger deal than it is, but most of our efforts related to 15 to finish and financial aid reform related to credit completion would not be reflected in the classes that you're looking at on these charts.
That's a good point. Yes, I believe for 2013, the data for full-time is 24.45 hours average, but I will make sure everyone has that data. And the GPA data suggests a slight improvement overall, up a couple of 2/100 of a percent, or 2/100 of a GPA number, 2.60 to 2.62. Okay, and so for a newer indicator on these reports that we folded in this year is sophomore persistence, which we calculate as the number of students who started freshman year at an Indiana public institution and who continued enrollment into the fall semester of the second year at any Indiana public institution. The data I have up here is a national comparison. And this is from the National Student Clearinghouse data. Their data is actually from public schools to any sector. And so this, as this graph shows, persistence numbers for both 2-year and 4-year Indiana publics are slightly above national average, but could possibly be even higher if we were to track enrollment across sectors, for example, to include private school data. Now, we're on a lag time, of course, in tracking these students. So this data is only for 2011 and 2012 high school graduates. This chart details persistence numbers for various student subgroups that we track. Again, only looking at public school data. Not surprisingly, the data indicate that students of more vulnerable populations, such as those of lower socioeconomic backgrounds, are more likely than their peers to not remain continuously enrolled in college, which ultimately affects time to degree and completion rates. Now, also, 2 years does not make a trend make, but you'll see that the numbers are actually going down for 2 cohorts.
Which one?
It's hard to see, I know they're in the red. So for Core 40, those who graduated with a waiver, those who are free and reduced lunch.
What's a waiver?
Sorry. It means that you can actually get, you cannot have passed the end of course exam, but have done your coursework, and the individual teacher in high school grants a waiver for completion anyway. So, and they were really, it was meant to be exercised very conservatively with very few people getting them. And we did it, there has been some comparisons. Some school districts were granting waivers far beyond what you would have thought it would be. So we've sort of been shining the light on that, and the number of students who graduate with waivers is actually going down.
The numbers are certainly a lot lower, but yes. So in summary, the data for 2011-2013 high school graduates suggest college going rates and college sector enrollment are holding steady. More students are declaring a major early on. And of course, although challenges remain, college preparation and performance levels are showing signs of improvement, such as identified remedial needs are decreasing, freshman GPA is slightly improving, sophomore persistence is above national average. And that's the end of my presentation. If there are any additional questions, I'm happy to address.
You know, not to put a burden on you, I'd love to see these, our summary numbers versus national average.
And
Could you see that soon?
certainly. There's only so much I could put on a PowerPoint.
Right.
No, I'd definitely be happy to pass that along. Okay.
I have one request, if this makes any sense. Could you back up once? Yes, that slide there. Is there a way that you could show a correlation between those numbers and the number of students taking remediation? So for example, in the racial breakdown, are you able to show remediation by race in these other categories? How do they break out? Or
We can do that.
okay.
Any other questions?
I'll just say it's very exciting information. I agree with that. It's worth exploring. Thank you very much for your work to put it together. So what's next for us? What do we have to look forward to?
Completion reports, and those should be coming out either towards the end of April or early May.
Okay.
I'd be interested about other grades. This is more measured K-12.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I do say, we've had lots of interest around this, even in my time here. I mean, we get phone calls every month asking for the data, so it's well used.
Dennis?
Yes.
When I was on the school board, I said there's 6 things you have to get if you're going to be successful in life. Math, 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 English, English, English.
Very good. Well, thank you very much, Stacy. You'll see in your agenda item, we have the next item, Indiana Career Ready campaign. We're actually going to, in the interest of time, we're going to move that to our Weldon conference. We won't cover that today. You see a few information items listed. I also just want to make you aware, just as a reminder, that the Weldon conference is coming up on April the 12th, 2015, and we hope everyone is able to attend, and then we'll have our next commission meeting scheduled for May 14th, 2015 in Jasper, Indiana. And I think I would be remiss, I hope this is appropriate, but Chris Murphy, we just want to express to you and your family Godspeed and blessings. And if there is any old business, new business, thank you all. Meeting is adjourned.